Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode here on Dangerous African Confessions HD. In this episode, we have a story from one of our sisters. She shares with us her emotional life journey, the pain, anguish, and suffering that she has been through. In this emotionally charged story, our dear sister shared with us how she lost her mother due to her father's wickedness towards them. When the mother was admitted at the hospital, she again reveals to us about her health status and the condition she is faced now. She said that she wanted to share her life experience with you, our lovely followers, so that if anyone among us is going through such situations, he or she can find comfort in her story. Without taking much of your time, let us go and listen to her story. Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload.
Hello brother, how are you? I believe everything is fine with you and your listeners as well. I would like to share with you my life story to encourage others in a similar situation as mine. Life is indeed a mystery. And no one can tell you for sure what life is all about. For some, life is all about what they possess and the money they have. For others, it is about family and union. Some of us on the other extreme end, life is just pain and suffering. Life is not worth it. I sometimes sit down and ask myself how and what happened that life has been so cruel to me. I don't know what really happened between my father and mother that got my father to dislike anything about my mother, and as a result, he extended that hatred towards me. Throughout my life till my mother died, we never had a decent square meal for ourselves. I am still very young at age 22, and the kind of pains that I have been through, if I say I want to tell it all, we will not have space for me. To the point where my mother practically told me to allow her to die, because she can no longer see me suffer the way I was suffering to take care of her medical bills. Brother, thank you for putting up this program, where some people get the chance to hear some of these stories. This will enable them to make provision for dark times in their lives. I will tell my story in a way that I can hold up till I finish. Because I don't know how long I will be able to hold up my tears. Like I said, I am 22 years and I am an HIV patient. I was not born like that, but in my attempt to save my mother's life, I got this disease in the process. I grew up with only my mother. I had always wanted to know who my father was. And so, when I was about 12 or so, my mother told me who my father was. And so, one day I decided to go to him and introduce myself. When I got to his house, I wondered if he is actually my father. Why are we living in such harsh conditions and he is living lavishly? When I told him about my mission, that particular time, there was this old woman who had come to him and was about leaving. My father shouted at me and rained down insults at me for calling him my father. He told me to go and ask the whore that I called a mother where my father is. Because he can never be my father. The words that he used on me still have stuck with me till this day. On my way out of the house, the old woman who I met in the house came out together with me. She asked me to wait for her. She then told me that I shouldn't take the words that he had said to heart. The truth of the matter is that he is actually my father and that she is aware of the whole story between my father and my mother. This woman escorted me to my house. When we reached the house, she told me something. She said that, never repeat the same mistake of your mother. She said that, my mother trusted people so much that, it is her own friend who has caused her all the problems that she is going through. The whole story about my mother and father is something that is strange and difficult to understand. But let me stop here and tell you about my mother and myself. At a point, things became so difficult for my mother and I to the point where we go and take food on credit in order to be able to eat. That was how bad our situation was. As a result of this hardship, I couldn't afford to go to school again and had to stop. Because on regular basis, I was driven home to collect my school fees. And knowing very well that there was nothing in the house for me to go and collect, I will stay out of the classroom till the school closes and I will join the students to go home. But for how long was this going to go on? At a point, I had to advise myself and stop worrying myself about going to the school and later being asked to go home. I was about to write my final exams at the junior high school level when I stopped schooling. My mother didn't want me to, but I told her that there was no need to worry herself because the two of us know very well that, even if I go back, there will be no money to pay for the fees that I was owing. Not to talk about the exams fees and everything that came with the final exams. So, I became a porter in our local market. I will carry people's load when they come to the market to buy their goods. This way, I was able to get something small for us to feed on. My mother was also frying donuts and I will carry some of them to sell whilst she was also selling some at where she stationed. The market wasn't good, but one thing about my mother is that she will never say anything bad. No matter how bad the situation is, she always would tell me, God is still working things and our own time will come. This her statement was the very thing that kept me believing that one day we will also have something good for ourselves. At this very age, I was also engaged in construction work, where I will go to the site and fetch them the water they will need for their work. After which they will pay me. My mother will always at the end of the day, go on his knees and thank God for the wonderful things he has done and is still doing in her life. Sometimes, I get angry when she prays these prayers. After the prayers I will ask why he was praising and thanking God for nothing done in our lives. She will always smile at me and tell me, you don't know the kind of battles the good Lord is fighting on our behalf. She taught me to always be thankful and not just when I have more. She said, if you cannot thank God for the little things you have, you definitely cannot thank Him for the bigger things, and so, He will not allow those things to come your way. She will go to bed late at around 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. and then wake up around 4 to start preparations for her donut business. This was practically her life. I always keep myself in the room when she wakes up that time and starts her work. I will ask myself if this is really the only life that this beautiful soul came to this earth to live. When I start to think about my mother like that, tears flows down my face like water. Sometimes, when I am there like this, I ask myself what is it like to die? Because, I always think about my mother and what she is doing over there on the other side. I remind one evening when I wanted to kill myself and end all the suffering. This was after my mother had died and I realized I have HIV. I went to buy this poison and was about to drink it and end it all. I heard a voice as loud and clear as my mother, telling me to stop it because she didn't die for me to also join her this way. My mother's voice is always with me. I hear her frequently. That is when I am down and things start getting really dull and overwhelming for me, that's when I mostly hear her talk to me. My mother told me that she wanted me to go back to school and write my exams. So, any amount that she make from her sales, even though it wasn't much, she will keep it just for that reason. She promised me that I will go back to school. I should just give her 1 year to gather herself. I think it was on the 8th month when this tragedy happened. I honestly cannot tell you what really brought about this whole thing. But she told me was that she slept when she was busy frying her donuts. When she slept, her hand hit the pan on which she was frying and it had this oil that had been on fire for such a long time. Because of her hand and her right side getting to the pan, the oil poured on her. Brother, my mother has really suffered in this life. She quickly was rushed to the hospital. Upon further checks and examinations, the treatment that was prescribed for her, there was no way we could afford it. I went to this old woman who had told me about my mother and father and pleaded with her to go with me to talk to my father. She agreed and we went to his house. My father, when he heard about what had happened to my mother, he said that he has no money to help with her treatment. But if she does and we want him to help with her burial, he will gladly help us. This statement from the man supposed to be my father, and it is the woman who he got her pregnant that we were talking about, broke me to the very core. I realized from that moment that anything can happen to my mother. The little money that we had gathered is what we used to make the initial payments for her treatment. And it was not going to take long for them to start asking for more money. I started going from one person to the other in search for money to her treatment. After not making any progress, I had to resort to this man who had expressed interest in me for a while and I had turned him down. He told me that he can only help me with the money if only I allow him to have his way with me. After hearing this from him, I returned to the hospital to see how far my mother was doing. I got the hospital and she told me that, in case she dies, I should make sure the coffin she will be buried with, there was this box that she had placed on top of her divider. I should put that box in her coffin. I told her not to say such words because she was not going to die. What I didn't tell you earlier was that my mother was not all that healthy. She had been suffering from diabetes and some other health problems. So this made her so much weak. Anytime she would look at my face, she would be crying. She held my hand and told me not to worry, for everything will be all right with me. She said the good Lord will make a provision for me. I couldn't take it anymore. So I went out of the rooms with the promise of returning with the money. I went straight to the man's house and, true to his words, he had his way with me and gave me the money and even told me to let him know if there is anything else that I needed. I rushed back to the hospital with the money, and when I went to the ward that my mother was, her bed was empty. I didn't understand, and so I rushed out and called on one nurse to find out about my mother. She then told me to come with her to the doctor's office. It was here that the doctor told me that my mother had died. I told the doctor if it is because of the money that he is saying that, I have the money now. He should take the money and help my mother. He told me that, whatever he is telling me is the truth. I don't know what happened again after I was told this bad news. I woke up on a hospital bed at the same hospital. On the same bed my mother was admitted. When I woke up, the woman who told me about my mother and father was there at the hospital. She is the only person that visited my mother when she was at the hospital. She told me that she was coming to give my mother food and she was told about her death. I was discharged and this woman took me into her house. Throughout the period of my pain about the death of my mother, I was with her. She said she would never allow me go back to my mother's place, because I can do myself harm. I told her about what my mother had told me earlier whilst she was at the hospital concerning the box. So she accompanied me to take the box. When I opened the box, it was my father's picture and that of a lady. The woman told me that that lady is my mother's best friend, who took my father away from my mother. That was when I really got to know who the old woman was. She told me that, when my mother's parents had a car accident and died, she practically saw how my mother all by herself lived her life. And met my father. At that time she had this friend who she was always in her company. This woman said that, she advised my mother against her friend, but my mother never listened to any of the things she said. Until the lady actually did what she did to my mother. It was too late because the harm had already been done. It was 3 months after the separation that my mother realized that she was pregnant. But knowing my mother, this woman said she knew the person responsible for the pregnancy was my father. But he denied responsibility because to him, my mother had gone to sleep around and did not get any man to claim responsibility, and that she wants to pin him with the pregnancy. I did exactly what my mother had asked me to do. So, she was buried with the pictures. What will happen, I really do not know. But everything is up to the good Lord. After some time, I realized I wasn't feeling well, and so, I went to the hospital for checkups. That was when I got to realize that the man I slept with for the money had actually infected me with the virus. I was a virgin when he did that to me. And it was after I made a report to the police that we got to know that he has been living with the virus for quite some time. So, after my incident, a lot of the young girls who have had something to do with him started going for checks to know their status. He was arrested and sentenced, but that was not important to me. I wanted to end everything. The more I try, the more I hear my mother's voice telling me to stop. The voice comes vividly like she is still alive. I don't know what is ahead of me that the voice keeps pushing me to not kill myself. I honestly do not wish what I have been through for anyone out there. Please, if you wake up and are able to find something to eat, thank your maker. Be appreciative a little. At least you don't have anything in your blood to suggest to you that you will not live your life to the fullest. This is my story, brother. I really hope someone out there really learned from my story. If you cause someone pregnancy, please, no matter what happens between you and the mother, the child is your responsibility. Always note that. And if you are a lady who is causing someone pain by taking what belongs to them, know that you have no idea what they are doing behind your back, which might cause you greater pain than what you are causing them now. Thank you, brother, for listening to me.
Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. Like I always say, these are not just stories for story's sake. They are meant for us not to make these mistakes our brothers and sisters are making. That's why we share these stories with you. Now with this ever emotional story, I will say that life indeed is some that no one can predict. And you can even seem to understand what life is all about. I honestly shed tears listening to her share this story with us. Please, just like she said, let us learn to be thankful for the very essence of life that we have. Be grateful that you can have food on your table throughout the week. Some people do go to bed on an empty stomach, but they still say a word of thanks to God for their lives. All I will say is that I wish our dear sister the best of luck and pray that her maker will come true for her. I really pray for divine restoration for whatever she has lost in her life. Again, I would love to let her know that whatever voice she is hearing, she should listen to it and never try to commit suicide again. Because I feel there is something good ahead of her life. I pray that we learn from some of these stories and live a better life. If not for anything at all, it pays to live a decent and better life. Stay blessed and be safe. Thanks for being a part of this growing family. Kindly share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. And if you are new here, please subscribe, like and share.